A major legal fight over Texas' new congressional maps.
You can draw districts based on political performance.
But did it stop there in the drawing of new congressional boundaries?
We will see you back in court very soon.
We're in El Paso, where federal judges will soon make a ruling that will impact your vote.
We're going to do everything we can to move the needle in this state.
And backlash over big changes within the Texas Democratic Party.
We will take on whatever billionaire, whatever banker, whatever bootlicking bastard we have to make sure that the little guy gets his fair seat at the table.
This is Lone Star Politics from NBC5 and the Dallas Morning News.
Good Sunday morning to you. I'm Vince Sims from NBC5, sitting in for Phil Prazen. Gromer Jeffers, political writer with the Dallas Morning News, is on assignment and will join us shortly. We're going to begin in El Paso and a hearing that could have a major impact on your 2026 election vote. The hearing is over the new congressional boundaries signed into law in August by Governor Abbott. The same maps that resulted in Texas Democrats breaking quorum during the legislative session and ignited a national debate. A panel of 3 federal judges must decide the legality of the maps intended to add 5 additional Republican seats from Texas to the GOP's narrow House majority. The argument is that the GOP-drawn map is unconstitutional for several reasons. Gromer Jeffers, political writer for the Dallas Morning News and co-host of this broadcast, is covering the hearing, and he joins us now. Good morning, Gromer.
Vince, how are you?
Doing well. Missing you here in the studio. Let's jump right into this. I got to ask you, how has this trial played out so far?
Well, as expected, the plaintiffs, those who believe the maps are unconstitutional, put on their case. They brought several witnesses, including State Senator Royce West, to testify that they believe the maps were unconstitutional. And those witnesses were cross-examined by the state, lawyers for the Attorney General's office. And I got to tell you, Vince, what's at stake here is whether the maps were drawn with a partisan political intent or were they drawn with an intentional intent to racial gerrymander. And that's the distinction. Now, what's interesting is both can be true, right? But the way the voting rights laws have evolved in terms of the interpretation, the state believes that if they can argue that this is just a political process, that President Donald Trump wanted 5 more Republican congressional seats from Texas, then they believe they'll win this case. But it's a long way to go, and we'll see.
I know we're just getting into it, but what has stood out so far with you with the plaintiff's case?
Well, they're pinning it on a letter from the Justice Department that says that several coalition districts, so-called coalition districts in Texas are illegal. That included District 33, that's represented by Congressman Mark Vesey. That district was drawn in 2011. Mark Vesey began to serve in 2013. It's a district that's controlled by Democrats, but a coalition of Democrats, Black, Hispanic, and also white. Well, the plaintiffs are saying that the letter from the Justice Department and Governor Greg Abbott's embrace of that letter proves that they had racial intent in drawing the maps. Will the judges agree with that? I don't know, but it's interesting that the plaintiffs are now arguing about the Justice Department letter when Democrats at the beginning of the process were pointing out that Trump wanted these seats and that it was political. And so you're seeing all these arguments sort of shift and change. But the bottom line is, was there racial intent in drawing these congressional districts?
Mm-hmm. So what are you expecting to see when the defense calls its witnesses this week?
Yeah, the state's going to call its witnesses. They're going to try to prove that as objectionable as you think these maps are, we drew them because we could draw them and because we wanted to maximize Republican representation in Congress, that we drew these maps for political gain. and there was no racial intent. That's what they will argue. And of course, the plaintiffs will have a chance to cross-examine. And again, they will try to prove that, look, why were only minority districts targeted in this process? Questions like that. And so that's what you're going to have to, that's the question that will be answered. Politics versus racial gerrymandering.
You know, as we talk about the politics coming into play with this, we know the federal judges are presidential appointees. You know, can you talk about the judges and if this could have any type of impact?
Yeah, it's a 3-judge panel. One judge, Judge Smith, was appointed all the way back in the Reagan era by Ronald Reagan. You know, there's an Obama-appointed judge and a Trump-appointed judge, and they're from different parts of the state. This is known as a conservative panel. They're veterans of voting rights and redistricting issue. The May-June redistricting case on the 2021 congressional boundaries and legislative boundaries was in their court, in the federal court here in El Paso. So they're veterans of this process, but no matter how they rule, this will end up in the Supreme Court. It's a constitutional question. That means an automatic appeal to the loser to the U.S. Supreme Court. And so we're going to see potentially a historic ruling by the Supreme Court, because this is a very important case that will tell us how the Voting Rights Act and various sections under the Voting Rights Act are viewed in the modern era, 2025.
All right, Gromer, we have to leave it right there. Thank you so much for joining us from El Paso.
Good to see you, Vince.
Well, a move within the Texas Democratic Party is raising concerns. It's opening offices in Amarillo, Eagle Pass, Dallas, and Houston. There has been some pushback with reports of upheaval within the party. I sat down with Party Chair Kendall Scudder, who said the expansion will help revive the party excitement and help in the effort to end a drought. Texas Democrats haven't won a statewide race in more than 30 years. Here's part of our conversation.
I think that grassroots all across Texas are sick and tired of our office and the Texas Democratic Party being insulated inside of Austin. It's time for us to get around, do a 254 county strategy, and get serious about winning this state again. I don't think that the party's necessarily done that. They've always had a consultancy strategy. Well, if you ask those consultants, they'll just tell you every single time that they just didn't get enough money to be able to win it. I think that we have to build a grassroots army in every corner of this state, and that's exactly what we're doing.
You did get some pushback from it, and even some people that resigned or quit over this?
Any time that you have change, it's going to be a little hard. But I don't think that there's anybody that is a Democrat sitting at home thinking, well, I wish the Democrats would just stay the course. Every single one of them are saying the Democrats need to rethink the way they're operating. And I knew when I got elected that there were going to be some big, bold moves we were going to make that was going to upset the political class. That's fine. I don't work for them. I work for the grassroots of this party, and we're going to do everything we can to move the needle in this state because it's our obligation to meet this moment. And I think that grassroots Democrats across the country are starving for a Democratic Party that understands the gravity of what we're facing, and that's what we're going to act like what we are doing is consequential. And I don't feel like Democrats have been operating that way in the past.
So you're going grassroots, you're moving some offices around the state, so obviously think there's some races that can be won out there?
Look, I'm not an idiot, okay? I know that there's not a whole lot that we have in opportunities out in the Panhandle this cycle, okay? That has never been a place that's been very good for Democrats. But the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago. The next best time's today. If we're going to be serious about talking about being a party that stands up for working class people, we have to be organizing where working class people are. And I grew up on a Purple Hole pea farm in East Texas. We were all Democrats because the Democrats delivered big, systemic, progressive change that made life better for us. That's what we as a party have to be focused on. I think a lot of people in the Panhandle are looking for people that are going to stand up and fight for them. The Democratic Party of today, we will take on whatever billionaire, whatever banker, whatever bootlicking bastard we have to make sure that the little guy gets his fair seat at the table. That's what opening up offices in places like Amarillo and Eagle Pass are about.
So what are some of the statewide races you're thinking and looking at that it can be winnable?
Well, I mean, Of course, as chairman of the Texas Democratic Party, I'll tell you all of them, right? But I do think there are some unique opportunities for us. Look at the U.S. Senate race and the amount of attention that that's garnering right now. Whether it's John Cornyn or Ken Paxton on the other side, they've never gotten out of bed a single day and thought about you. They get out of bed every single day and think about themselves and Donald Trump. End of the list. I think the United States Senate is a real possibility here in Texas, particularly when we have a rigged economy that is only working for the people at the top that are now controlling the government, and the rest of us are stuck at the bottom groveling for crumbs. This is a good opportunity for us. Look at the governor's mansion. The governor picked up the phone and bent over backwards for a president that asked him to shut down community public schools. He pushed a voucher program that will defund community public schools, will make sure teachers are having to go out of pocket even more to buy supplies for their classrooms, and that's going to end up crippling arts and sports programs that we're known for here in Texas. I think this governor is vulnerable because he's picking on our community public schools that are pillars of our community. Keep going down the list. I mean, I think we have a lot of opportunity in front of us. We have a lot of county judge options. We have a lot of county commissioner spots. From the bottom of the ticket all the way up to the top, the Democrats are here to fight, and we're not just going to roll over and do business as usual.
What do you see as your biggest challenges you're faced with right now?
I think the biggest challenge that we face in Texas is that for 30 years we've gotten kicked in the teeth. And for 30 years, we have been relegated to the sidelines. And it's created this mentality amongst Democrats that it's a lost cause. But this change doesn't happen overnight. We have to build on it year over year, cycle over cycle. And so making sure that people understand that, yeah, we may not wake up on election day and clean plate and win every single one of those seats, but I think we'll make progress. And I think that the Republicans know that if we stick at it and keep slogging away, building a working class grassroots army all across this state, they're in a whole lot of trouble. And so to me, that is one of the biggest challenges, reminding people who we are as Democrats. Democrats built Texas. Democrats have the opportunity to save it too.
As you said, it's a challenge that's been 30 years in the making to get to this point, so it's not going to be an easy way to just turn the ship quickly to make this happen.
Of course not. And as a party, we also have to look in the mirror and own up to mistakes that we've made in the past. One of those examples, there were 1.1 million Democrats who voted in 2020 and chose to stay home in 2024. I think they would tell you that they're tired of Democrats sitting in the middle and negotiating away the things that are important to them. Our party used to have a supermajority in both chambers of Congress when we had big, bold, progressive ideas that changed lives for working class people. We were the party that created Social Security. We created Medicare and Medicaid, rural electrification. You have clean water because Democrats delivered that and Republicans opposed every one of those projects every step of the way because they said it was socialism. It's absolutely insane. Sam Rayburn used to say it best. You call it socialism, I call it applied Christianity. We have an obligation as a party to take on the establishment, to take on whatever systems that are broken, to make sure that the little guy at the bottom gets his fair shake. That's who we are as a party. That's how we're going to move forward, and that's how we're going to win.
All right. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Still ahead, ironing out the rules for the state's new education savings account program in time for the next school year.
We are not just a little mom and pop coming in. We are teaching, educating.
We'll take a look at the main point of contention. Plus, the buzz being created with the addition of another Republican in the Texas Agriculture Commissioner race. You're watching Lone Star Politics.